Join us on a trip back in time while we explore your family history. We'll visit with genealogists, historians, and others just like you and me, and share their tips, tricks, and troubles that they've run into along the way. On today's show, we'll talk with blogger, author, and genealogist Deb Sweeney about her new book, Dear Mother, Love Daddy, a collection of letters to and from home during World War II. Then, we'll go on a quest to find a family plot in a local cemetery. Journey along with us on Discovering Your Past. Hi there, my guest today is Deb Sweeney, and she's out in Northern California, and she's joining us by Skype this morning. Deb, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, Deb, you're a blogger, you're an author, and a professional genealogist. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I am a native New Englander. Let's see, about 20 years ago, I met my husband, and he dragged me kicking and screaming out to California, and that's where I've been for the last 20 years. I am a part-time elementary school teacher, and I am a genealogist at night. So,
School teacher by day, a genealogist by night. That sounds like a superhero. How did you get started in genealogy?
Both my grandmothers were very active with the family genealogy, so I kind of took over from them. When I was a little girl, my maternal grandmother and her cousins were very involved with trying to prove that we were a Mayflower descendant. So I am a card-carrying member of the Alden Kindred of America when I was about 10 years old. And then my other grandmother was very interested in compiling the history of the Jaegerleiner family. Even though she had married into the family, she wanted to make sure that we were all accounted for. About the time I got married in the early 90s, I basically took over. I got everything that they had collected, and I went from there.
You have a blog at genealogylady.net. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The blog started in 2012 on Thanksgiving weekend. I decided I needed to push up my genealogy, and I write about it in my book, but I inherited all the letters that my paternal grandparents wrote during World War II, and I didn't know what to do with them. There were so many of them, so I decided, hey, a blog would be a great way to share them. I'd get to read them. I'd get to share them with other family members. And 2.5 years later, I'm still working on it.
How many letters are there?
I would say there's probably about 1,100. And yeah. And this week I hit 950.
You transcribe all the letters, correct? And how long does it take you on average?
It takes me about an hour per letter between transcribing, then I have to scan them and, all the techie stuff of loading them up to the website. And then if they're cool historical facts or incidents that get mentioned, I have to do a little research. For example, my grandmother will occasionally mention a speech on the radio by FDR. So then I want to go see if I can find that speech to know what she was listening to. Or they'll talk about listening to Fibber and McGee on the radio, they were a big radio personalities at the time. So I've learned so much about what the United States was like during the 40s that I didn't previously know about, which has been great for me personally.
You started putting those letters into a blog, and is that how the book came about? Dear Mother, Love Daddy?
The book is actually the first, but the first 5 months of letters. One of the problems with the first 5 months is that my grandfather would receive my grandmother's letters and he'd tear them up. Well, he was still stationed in the United States, so it wasn't as big of a deal for him because they weren't that far away. But when he actually was shipped out, then he started to save her letters.
So I have to say that I could not put the book down. I
Yay.
read the beginning part, and then I started reading letters, and because the letters are shorter,
Right.
it's very easy to just keep going, and next thing you know, a couple hours later, you're like, where did all this time go? Uh,
Well, that's good. Every author wants to hear that.
so it's as much for the historian as it is for the genealogist, right?
Yeah. Little anecdote. A friend of my father's is in the publishing industry, and she has pigeonholed it as a genealogy book. But I really don't feel it's just a genealogy book. It's a history book because these are contemporary letters for World War II. So even though my grandparents are basically nobodies, and even people from their communities know them, family members knew them, but someone from Arkansas is not going to know who my grandparents from Indiana are. But because the letters are just the experience, I think that the book really does have a broader appeal than just a family history or a genealogy. So anyone who's interested in what an average family went through during the war, the separation, um, the pining for each other, dealing with everyday stuff. My grandmother was a very independent woman. She had a job. She worked as a stenographer before she met my grandfather. So she knew, you know, how to work outside the home. So it's not like she was completely helpless when he left, but she did have to pick up a lot of things that he would have helped out with.
In researching all of the footnotes and such, what's one of the most surprising things that you've learned?
Oh, I didn't really have an answer to that
Oh,
question.
okay. The most surprising thing is that you didn't have an answer for that question. Excellent.
Yeah. Let's see. One of the footnotes that I did extra research on was in partway through the time that my grandfather was stationed in Virginia, my grandmother went down to visit him. And of course, there were no letters during that time period, but of course, she went home and the letters started back up again. He made reference to the ships off of Virginia Beach. And I did a bit of historical research and realized that while my grandmother was visiting in Norfolk, a convoy of ships had been hit by sea mines. So I had a reference to this historical event that happened that they might have actually seen, because I think they went down to the beach to actually see some of the either the ships burning or, so it was very personal for them. And for most people, it would have just been a newspaper clipping. But that was something that they had a connection to.
Deb, how can people find your blog?
My blog is at www.genealogylady.net.
Well, Deb, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're going to take a quick break and listen to a couple of the letters. And when we come back, Deb has a special project for me.
Kentland, Indiana, September 1, 1942. Dear Daddy, the first day of September. It doesn't seem hot and humid today. At least it hasn't bothered me so far, but it is just noon, and I don't know what it will be this afternoon. Yesterday, the perspiration just trickled down while I was taking a nap. The nights have been cool, and that helps. I am still home. Haven't gone to Lafayette yet, but may go this evening or tomorrow, depending on how I feel. John was hunting in the morning paper for a news item for school, and the headlines were about meat rationing. You can guess his reaction. He wanted to know how much we had or if we could get more. I talked to the bandmaster, and I may be able to trade the old horn in on something for Mark. Since a trumpet is about the hardest horn to blow, I am going to try and get him something easy, because I am afraid he wouldn't last long with the trumpet. He is so thrilled about being in the band, I want him to remain so. Mr. Webster looked over the old horn and said it was still in good condition, so maybe someone else can use it and get some good out of it. I hear Link mowing his lawn. John started on ours yesterday, but it was so hot he didn't get much done. The last rain we had made it grow, and it has been so humid ever since. The boys thought they would be through mowing in August. Mark is waiting to mail this and getting impatient to go, so must hurry. Not much in the way of news today. Love, Mother.
Dear Mother, having been having 3 meals per day with an extra bread, butter, and onion sandwich at night. Also, a good place to sleep at night. Everybody is in pretty good spirits, but of course we miss our daily newspaper and the frequent news reports. Although we have gotten some news each day, enough to keep up with the times. I haven't received a letter since way back when, but maybe that will be different now, at least I hope so, and I'll try to write more often as time goes along. Hope you and the boys are okay. Needless to say, I think of you lots. You write the folks as soon as you get this, and I'll write them later. I hope you haven't tried to work too hard on the lawn since I've been gone, but as we previously planned. I think those nice evergreens would certainly add lots, and during October, new iris are due to be set out. These 2 things should be done this fall, if at all possible, rather than in the spring. Many of the boys here didn't know how to play euchre, and now since I've taught them, we have lots of fun and it helps pass away our spare time. In case I don't get to write before your birthday, I'll be thinking about it and hope that I can do better by then. I suppose the boys will be in school again before long. We all think of our families often and say a wee little prayer each night that everything will be okay, just like Joe Palooka in the funny paper. My very good friend's name is Walsh, and I call him Nobby, but he has lots of hair and can't be compared with the Nobby in the funny paper. I write in my diary every night, but you'll have to wait until I get home to read it. I'll write more often from now on, so long. Lots of love, Daddy. P.S. Received some mail today.
Well, welcome back to Discovering Your Past. So the other day, Deb had contacted me, and she has some ancestors here in Nashua, and she had a very special mission for me. Deb, why don't you tell me a little bit more about that mission?
Okay, I'm currently writing a family narrative about my ancestor, Nathaniel Hobart, and he and his family lived in Holbrook, Massachusetts. So kind of far away from Nashua, but not that far. So while I was doing my research, I discovered that one of Nathaniel's grandchildren had Nashua as her birthplace. So I started trying to figure out which branch of the family was in Nashua and why were they in Nashua. And I finally tracked it down to a man named Silas Hobart. And around 1847, he moved to Nashua, and he actually had several wives, but his last 2 wives he married them in Nashua, and the majority of his children were born in Nashua. So I wanted to figure out what he was doing in Nashua, and what his life was like after he left the Holbrook area. And I didn't have a death date on him. I did find a death record for his last wife that implied that she had died in Nashua. And so the mission that I gave Dan was find where Silas and his family was buried, because they've got to be in Nashua.
And you're about to see my adventure in Edgewood Cemetery. And I feel that I should probably mention that I may have mispronounced his name several times in the next segment. So, Silas, I apologize for calling you Silius the entire time, but we'll get back to that afterwards. Enjoy.
The information that I was given was that Silius died in 1869. His wife Phoebe died about 11 years later in 1880, and their son Samuel Hobart is buried somewhere here. You know what though? Edgewood is rather large, and as much as I enjoy a good walk, I did a little bit of research before we got here. Findagrave.com is a repository for burial information from around the globe. Users can upload photographs, biographies, links to other family members, and leave memorials, making it a virtual cemetery. They have over 121 million records from around the world. I searched for Hobart in Hillsborough County, New Hampshire, and came up with 65 records. Sorting it down to just Edgewood revealed just 3, including Samuel, but no Silius. There are no photos or other information attached to this record, or either of the other 2 for that matter, so for now, I'll move on. My next step was going to be a stop at the cemetery office. Edgewood is one of the city-operated cemeteries, and while searching the Go Nashua website for the office hours, I found an online plot search form. How convenient. Searching for Hobart here yields 9 results, of which I can see the section, lot, and space numbers. There's also a map of Edgewood, which should make this search easy peasy. I hope. Whenever you're out searching in the field, you want to make sure you bring your notes, and that's what I have here. I've got my map and my listing of all of the Hobarts that should be here. You can see that I color-coded my notes. I did this because there's 3 different plots to go take a look at. The middle plot is a family that looks like probably not the right one, so we're going to skip that one for now. And we're going to start with the bottom section, which includes Samuel Hobart, Silius's son, and 3 other people. 2 for Minnie M, and 1 for Mary B. Let's go see if we can take a look. They're in Section Y, Lot 92, and the wind is taking this away. You know what? You know what? This isn't Y. Over there, that's Y. I think I've been right in the first place that this section over here is actually Y. So let's see what we got. If this is 28, let's see, 28, 27, 26 maybe, 25, 93 and 92 should be right over here, which makes me wonder if the bushes took this over. This is a Robert E. and Eliza A. And in there we saw Russell, Mitchell, Rollins K. And look what we have here. We've got Minnie L. We have Minnie M listed in the records. Died at age 16. But it's weird we have 2 of them. So this is really interesting. The stone that I showed you earlier that was buried in the bushes, well, look what's on the other side. Dun 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 dun. We have Hobart. Samuel Hobart, 1867 to 1931. His wife, Mary P. Burrell, 1868 to 1929. And 1889, Minnie M. to 1905. That's very, very interesting. And we have these little stones here on the ground. Father, Mother, and Minnie. So again, here's this side, Russell. Oh, and would you look at that? It's not because that stone belongs to Russell. That stone belongs to Russell. And we're going to come around to this side. And nestled all snug as a bug, we have the Hobarts. I always try to take some really good photographs of these stones, so that way we have them for a long time. The other thing that I really like to do when I'm out here is to get a set of GPS coordinates. And, well, that way we can find it in the future. Behind me is the next section that we're looking for, where the site for Silius should be. And I believe that he might be right over there. Let's go find out. Should be this section here, and if we look up, there's our road. And let's see what we got here. We've got Boyer. Oh, there it is. Hobart. What a beautiful stone. Hobart. Interesting. Henry S., his wife Ida M. 14, Raymond S., Patrick G. Pelletier, his wife Florence Hobart. Am I looking at the wrong one? Well, look at that. I got ahead of myself. This is that section that I thought that we weren't going to go take a look at, but we did anyway. So this is not the site for Silius, but in fact for the other Hobart family. All right, so we are looking for section. All right, we're looking for section D. You know what? I'm not in section D. I'm in section B. It's kind of tough. All right, so I think it's 3 rows back, and I think that this is row 1, 2, 3. Well, wrong again. It's 3 rows from that side. Over there. So one of the problems that I'm having here is you can see between sections B and D that there's a road, but there is no road. So it's a matter of kind of trying to figure out where the road should be, or the path. And you know what? That's a good sign right there. This looks like it could be the first row, the second row, and of course, the third row, empty. Well, I've been looking around now for a little bit, and it looks like this area right behind me is where Silius and Alvin Hobart were laid to rest. There is no headstone, so we can't take any photographs, unfortunately, but we will take a photograph of the general area, and this is what we'll bring back to Deb. Hobart. All right, so this is pretty fantastic. I actually, after a long search and almost giving up and almost finding the wrong spot, I think I found it. It's really, really hard to see, though. But I believe that's Silius Hobart. It's really hard to see, but I'm going to take a couple of photographs of it, and we'll see if we can enhance them a little bit, and we're going to call it a day. Right now the sun is behind the clouds, and we can see this so much better. Silius Hobart, Company F. Can't quite make out that last set of words, but we'll see if this means something to Deb. And here comes the sun. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Edgewood Cemetery looking for the Hobart family plots. I had a really great time, but now I'm going to go back and bring this information to Deb and see if I can enhance those photographs and see what exactly it says. I had so much fun looking for this information for you, and I've done a little bit more since then, and it looks like those last few letters on Silas's stone read NHHA for New Hampshire Heavy Artillery, and a Google search kind of helped me with that one a little bit. So I think that's pretty exciting that we were able to find that.
And to let you know, I did a little further research. Once you found the gravestone, I actually found his obituary. And sad to say, he survived the Civil War, but he died 4 years later when he got kicked by a horse. During a yeah.
He survives the war and then gets kicked by a horse. That's wow.
Yeah. And so he died from the injuries of being kicked by the horse.
Wow.
I guess his sleigh had broken, so it must have been a rough winter in Nashua that year. And the horse got tangled up in the sleigh, and while he was trying to untangle him, that's when he was injured.
Oh, man.
So history is filled with tragic stories like that.
It is all the time. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to find the history, not just our ancestors. And
Right.
that, to me, is one of the most exciting parts of this whole journey. Like I mentioned earlier, and as we all saw in the piece, I kept calling him Silius, and somehow, when I transcribed his name down the first time, I added an extra I in his name. And I mean, we've all done research for John and Johann and Janos, and I can see how easy it is to change the spelling of a name so quickly, and then you go on these wild goose chases for somebody who doesn't even exist.
Transcription errors are a huge part of genealogy research, because a lot of times someone has walked a cemetery. I know I have come across books of cemeteries that were transcribed in the 1970s. And, these wonderful people have gone through and done this service, writing names and dates down. They've made notations if stones were cracked or, missing. But a lot of times names get transcribed wrong. So it's something that happens quite often in genealogy. And that's one of those times where you have to be aware that you really want to go to original sources. So even though I could have found Silius Hobart in the city of Nashua has that great website that has all the you can type in the name and it will tell you who's buried at Edgewood, but they can only go off of their records. When you actually get to the cemetery, the stone might say something different, because it's really easy to transcribe numbers. It's really easy to put in extra vowels. In the case of Hobart, it's consistently spelled Hobart, but I also see it Hobert. And
which that other stone was right next to the Hobart one as well.
Exactly. So, even from one stone cutter to the next, spelling didn't matter back then. So transcription and spelling, in genealogy, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, that is the lesson learned there, as well as, searching around cemeteries and looking at maps, apparently, for me. But I had a great time, and we're gonna do a couple more projects.
And finding the stone for me, and it helped add that piece to the family narrative that I'm writing. So it was a win-win for me.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to see it when it's finished. Will we see it on your blog?
Actually, I'm in the process of writing it for one of the big national magazines. So cross your fingers that we'll see it in print in the next year or so, because it often takes about 6 months for it to actually appear in print. But I will keep posted.
Excellent. Well, Deb, thank you again for joining us on this episode of Discovering Your Past. And we hope that this encourages you to get out and search cemeteries and search your records and find the history of where you came from. Thanks again to Deb Sweeney. I hope that she inspired you to break out the old letters in your closet, like she did for me for my grandfather's journey to Greenland during World War II. I hope that you will continue your journey in discovering your past. For more information on this or any episode, visit us at discoveringyourpast.wordpress.com.